grade level. So what I'll do today is, and really everybody, we have two brand new people. This gentleman over here, you may not know him, but it's Chester Sanders. He's not new to Harmony, but he's new to Tech James. Yes. And then this girl, Miranda, and the brand new campus. So basically, we'll go through inquiry and I'll show them those projects and talk about how they work and how they would implement them. And I'll just tell them what they can do and let them partner up. And somebody take all the first grade projects and say, how does this fit in harmony? You know, what are the harmony units right here? What math texts or social studies or ELA texts are they teaching? What's the name of the inquiry project? Any kind of resources. So this is an informal document, but you can always take it to use to truly see, okay, is this really aligned where we want it? And I've used science as one of my and so I've worked with them the last couple of years on the inquiry alignment. The curriculum managers that I work with, that like are over math or over ELA, I mean, and within 30 minutes they had everything mapped out because they already have the units made. And these are very specific, like they kinder through eighth grade. It'll always ELA is always aligned to fiction or nonfiction or the writing skills. So ELA, I mean math is geometry, financial literacy, social studies is always geography or doing citizenship, and science is always alternative resources or geology. So it's very concise in how it's aligned. But hopefully I've got this set so that they can collaborate on some one document. So at the end of the day, one document with all of those lines they saw, and then I can share that with them to And and my thinking is with these tech apps teachers, they'll know now we can use this, but we know we need to wait until after during October 19th, right? So they're not teaching something. Yeah. What we're doing, how we're wrapping up together. And just whatever you want to know, like if you want to demo a product, just let me know and I can do a walkthrough. Are you housed at a central office? I'm not in central office, but I'm in the same room. So I'm close, so I can come by the office or I can do it later. Well, maybe when I send this to you, it'll remind you. You can look on your calendar.
Well, and the problem is right now I'm kind of in holding pattern. Once school starts, everything will be very different.
Okay.
So I have a suggestions I have for myself. We'll see how that goes. Doing well. How was your summer? It was good. How was yours? It was, well, I got a vacation this year, so that was good.
Oh, okay.
That was good. I did get a vacation this year. So I went to Maine. Once they get that, yeah. It's the first one that they like math tests are funny. Like when the little kindergartners are like, I don't even know what to do. Like trash. Thank you.
All right, can I get everybody to be logged back in and let's be at the library? Thank you, Miss Beer. Oh, okay. So she's who I worked with to set up this day. Mr. Kaba. Okay. So this morning we spent time looking at just a little bit about the platform, Easy Tech curriculum, and specifically the HTML, how to build your own web links, how to build a unit, and then just some of the updates that we have to our system. Any questions about the morning? We didn't really talk about how kids see this. We'll look at that more in our afternoon for those of you that are brand new to this. Okay, so let's talk about what we'll look at this afternoon. Specifically, what we want to dig into is a part of our product that we call inquiry. I believe you've used inquiry. Has anybody else used our inquiry projects this last year? Oh, okay. Good. Can you tell me a little bit about how you use them and okay, and what she just said is important for you to know. Inquiry projects are not what I call plug and play. You can't assign it and come back later. It is a blended learning environment. So you are teaching and then the kids go do something, then you teach some more and the kids go do some more. It is a project based where the teacher's teaching and the kids follow up with some activity based on your instruction. So we're going to really dig into inquiry and how to implement it. And after that, we're going to talk about how the inquiry projects align to the core subject areas. So that's how we're going to spend the afternoon. It's getting almost too cold to talk in here. Okay. So I'm going to open my library. Please go ahead. You can open your library and follow along, or you can watch up here, whichever works best for you. I want you to open the inquiry tile. So that's the one in the middle. All right. It tells us in the description up at the top that inquiry is a project-based approach to integrating core subject area instruction with digital literacy skills. There's a technology skills pretest that students will complete before each project to make sure they're successful in working on that project. Then the kids complete the project. They're either doing research, they're creating something in digital tools, and then they present their work. Then kids have a reflection that they complete. So how many of you right now are familiar with the term PBL, project-based learning? Project-based learning is basically where students have a project, you've got some sort of a guiding question that they're going to be trying to answer as they go through the project. They're looking for the answer. There's always some sort of a formative assessment. You check for understanding before they start. They work through the project, and then there's a reflection where the kids reflect on what they learned. All of that is built into our inquiry project. Now, let me just ask you, how many of you have your kids work on projects right now? Not inquiry, just in general. In your tech apps classes, do they do projects? So what are some of the things involved in kids doing a project?
We normally provide them some of the details, and then based on that, they will create, let's say, I give them a website to make an HTML. Assuming that we are going to apply to college, and keeping that in mind, they created their website.
Okay. And did you give them instruction prior on HTML?
Yes, definitely.
And-
We had HTML classes once we finished all the tests and all the activities, and after that, that was their final project where they're going to make their own website as a development college. And there was another one we did for animation. They learned animation with me in Flash, and then we did back to their regular classes. So they had gone to visit a particular place, and they came back, and based on that, they all made a combined Flash animated movie.
Okay, so she said some things in there I want you to really pay attention to. She taught the HTML, the kids learned the HTML, then they did the project. They learned about the animation, they worked collaboratively as a group to create their project. So projects aren't students going off on their own without instruction from the teacher and just doing something, right? It involves teacher instruction, it involves kids collaborating, working together. And it usually takes a little bit of time, doesn't it? A project is rarely one day in the computer lab. So all of those things tie into other projects that we have here. So on my screen, you can watch or you can look at yours. I'm just going to give you kind of a big picture look at how our inquiry projects are organized. There is a button in the top left corner called Professional Development. Now, I will tell you that is for you as a teacher. You can go into this later and look, and there are journals. You open the journal, it has a little video, and it talks to you about how to use inquiry. So y'all can look at those anytime for yourself as a teacher, step by step, how to work with the product. I want us to go ahead and dig in for what the students do. Notice you've got different tiles from kindergarten through 8th grade. So the way inquiry is designed is we have projects that are specific to each grade level, kindergarten through 8th grade. So some of you I know work with K through 5, I think you do, so you've got access to all of the projects to use, but there'll be specific ones for kinder, first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth. I think you were just fourth and fifth, so you can, just pick those specific grade levels. So that we can all stay together, I want y'all to pick the same ones that I pick on this. Because what I tell you about with one grade is the same for all the grades. So I'd like everybody to look at 6th grade. You'll open that 6th grade tile. When you come into a grade level, doesn't matter what grade it is, you're going to see 7 units. The first one is your teacher resources. So let's go ahead and take a minute and look at these. The first one says it's the Inquiry Teacher Guide. Hit the view button. This is like what I showed you with those pre-tests earlier for the online assessments. Yeah. It's just your teacher's guide. So after we leave today, if you want to read more about it, then you can open up the teacher guide there. The other list that's in here is the projects list for that grade level. So let's click the view button and pull this up. Now, let me talk to you a little bit more about how this product was designed. The product itself, when it was developed, was with the thought, we're going to build projects that use technology for classroom teachers, for core classroom teachers, math, science, social studies, language arts. So that's not you, right? Y'all are tech apps teachers. You have a lab, kids come to you, you teach tech apps. These were really designed for a math teacher, a science teacher, a social studies, or science teacher. Did I leave somebody out? I think I said something twice. Anyway, 4 subject areas, right? So what they're doing is they've created projects that align to the core classroom subject areas, but every project requires the kids to use technology, and there's always some sort of a digital product that comes out of it. So the kids are using word processing or spreadsheets, movie maker, audio maker, some sort of a file that comes out of their project is the final result. There's always collaboration built into it and sharing of their work, but that's how these projects were designed. So I want you to take a second and just kind of look at your list or mine that's on the screen. But I want to walk through this with you. Now, these are the 6th grade projects, but when you see these written, they're just little snapshots of what each project is. So in 6th grade, the first one they have listed is Small Screens, Big Thinkers. It's tied to ELA, and it says it takes 5 class periods. I want y'all to just forget about how long it says it takes, because every teacher teaches it differently. If you were the core classroom teacher and you were teaching about consequences of online illegal behavior and writing summaries, you would have already taught that as a part of just being an English teacher, right? So don't worry about how long it says, because it's very adaptable depending on how the teacher's already given her instruction. But then it will also give you the final student media. So this tells me that from this project, kids are going to create a spreadsheet. And then it lists the technology core area learning standards. So in this project, the kids are elaborating on the consequences of illegal online behavior. They're giving evidence to support opinions about good online behavior. They're entering and manipulating data in a spreadsheet. They're writing summaries using a word processing application. So for you as tech apps teachers, you're very used to having kids enter data into a spreadsheet. You're very used to having kids understand how to develop a written document and a word processing document. Not all ELA teachers would ever think about using a spreadsheet in ELA, right? So keep in mind, these were designed for that core subject teacher to start to bring technology into what they teach, so that technology is not just a standalone requirement, a standalone course. Now, as we go through these, just looking at your project list, I want you to notice this. There are 2 projects for ELA. So in this particular grade level, there's a second ELA project called Write Like the Pros. There's a math project called Take Some Credit and one called Kid Town. There's a science project called Hard Rock, Soft Rock, Rock. And then there's a social studies called Techno Notes. What I want you to understand about the projects is this. every grade level gets 6 projects for the kids to complete. 2 are for ELA, 2 are for math, 1 is science, 1 is social studies. You'll start to see this, but when you go through it, one of the projects for ELA is always about fiction or nonfiction. One of them is always about the writing process. In math, one of the projects is always about geometry, and one is always about financial literacy. In social studies, one was always, they only have one. So it'll either be on geography or it will be on digital citizenship. And then in science, one will always be on either geology or they might talk about energy resources or just resources, natural resources. So from kindergarten through 8th grade, it always follows those strands in the subject area. Now, in the core classroom, those teachers have a scope and sequence. So they know when they're teaching geometry and they know when they're teaching financial literacy. They know when they're teaching about geology or natural resources. As a tech apps teacher, you don't necessarily know when those teachers are teaching those subject areas, right? So that's what we're going to do this afternoon. You're going to get your hands into the curriculum for math, science, social studies, and language arts, and you're going to discover when they're teaching these so that you know when you could teach them as use the projects in your tech apps class. Does that make sense? Because if there's a geometry lesson at 6th grade on 2D and 3D objects, you don't want to teach geometry in tech apps if they haven't even talked about it in math, right? So this document that we're putting together this afternoon is going to take this and align it to your Harmony curriculum so that it tells you when you all can use these projects. Okay. And so as long as you're not using them before it's taught in the core subject area, then I think you're fine.
Very helpful for them to enhance their knowledge on the topic.
That's right, and it is a support, right? They're seeing it in more than one place. You just don't want to have to be the math teacher, or you don't want to have to be the social studies teacher. So it's really good. And I'll be very honest. I looked at the 7th grade math financial literacy project thinking, oh, I'll just work through this one. Are you kidding me? I couldn't figure it out. So I would fail 7th grade financial literacy classes, right? So some of that, we don't want to have to be the teacher.
Teaching the free lessons that learning.com suggested.
Well, if you're going to use them, you probably will want to at least know what they are and adapt. We'll talk about that. But yeah, the bottom line is you're not the math teacher, you're not the science or social studies or language arts teacher, right? But you can use these projects to reinforce it. I just don't want you to use it too early. Wait until the kids have had this in their regular science class, and then you can follow up and use it in your tech apps. Because I will tell you, the way they're listed here is not like in an order that you have to teach them. You need to know when they're being taught in Harmony so that you know when to teach them in your tech apps classes. The other thing I will say, these projects are all aligned to our new tech app standards from 2011. So across the state, we had new tech app standards adopted in 2011. And as a part of the state textbook adoption process, this resource was developed. So Inquiry is our state adopted textbook for technology applications. And sometimes people say, well, gosh, why are there only 6 projects for the year? Say it again. Well, they do. And keep in mind, they're not meant for tech apps teachers. Oh, really, they were designed for classroom teachers to follow what they're doing in their regular English class or their math class. So it's not an English book. math, whatever, but it's to teach the technology in math class, in social studies, in language arts. So, but here's what you need to know. Any of these grade levels, if a student finishes all 6 projects during the course of 6th grade, they will have worked through and hopefully mastered all of the technology standards for 6th grade. So think about kindergarten, 6 projects. If they do all 6 projects in kindergarten, they've worked through all the kindergarten standards for technology. You as Tech Apps teachers, you're going to teach a lot more than just this, but this gives you some ready-made project ideas that you can work with the kids on that already ties into what they're learning. I know years ago, I used to teach computer literacy, like starting in 1985, when that was the first year we had computer literacy. So that's a long time ago. Some of you probably weren't even born then. But then anyway, that's when I got into teaching computer classes with kids. And I did that for, I don't know, a long time, until 1998. And so, you know, we would have kids learn about databases, and then we'd have to think, okay, well, what kind of project can they do with a database? Well, they can make address books, right? They can come up with recipe cookbooks. They can come up with, and you know, we were always having to think of projects for the kids to do. So this would be the same kind of thing, except the project's going to be tied to the subject area. We want to make a database about, you know, natural resources and where they're found across the state of Texas. So it gives you project ideas tied to the subject area. So you're helping support what they're, just like you said, it helps reinforce what they've already learned. And they're starting to see, oh, these technology tools, I can use them when I'm learning about other things as well. So it's tying it back to what they're learning in their other classes. More? I don't know that they will, and I don't know if y'all know much about how the textbook adoption process works, but when someone adopts a textbook in Texas, it goes through a lot of approval processes. So teachers from around the state have to check off, you know, it meets this standard, this standard, this standard. So with our project, we actually, for every grade level, it was approved that we meet 100% of the technology applications text per grade level. So that's why I say if every student does every project at their grade level, they have mastered all the technology text, we hope, or at least work through the technology text for their grade level. So in that regards, it's a complete product for Tech Apps. With state textbooks, you can't change them a lot. Like this is what was stamped and approved. But I will tell you, the company gets questions all the time about, oh, will you be making more projects? So what I will say to you is this. If you see a project in here that, let's say, is tied to social studies, and you like the idea, but maybe that social studies, like this one for 6th grade, talks about kind of researching how technology has affected you and writing a class wiki about it. But as a Tech Apps teacher, you say, oh, we could do that, but I want them to put together a wiki about, well, like what Mary Beth was talking about. I want them to put together a wiki about suggestions and resources that our 5th and 6th graders can teach our kindergarten and 1st grade kids. In other words, you can take the project ideas and make them your own and put your own content in there. So in that regard, you can use any of these to get ideas from. You just change it to make it your subject area you want it to be. Now, you can't physically change what's written here. But, you know, as teachers, you know what we all say, like, oh, I know it says that you're going to research wind energy, but I really want you to research, yes, Connecticut, right. So in that way, it's very adaptable. And it gives you more resources to pull from. Okay, So any questions about just sort of this overview that I gave you? So 6 projects per grade level. It covers 100% of the technology skills the kids need, but the projects will always tie to a core subject area. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, with that being said, I'm going to back out and actually look at the projects. And here's where I want you to be on the same screen as me. So I'm in 6th grade. And I'm actually going to choose this one project here called Hard Rock, Soft Rock, Fly Rock. So it's this science project for 6th grade. And let's just hit the view button. I'm just going to walk you through what you see as a teacher, and then I'm going to show it to you from a student side, because I really want you to think about the implementation. How do I use this with students? All right. At the very top, it will always give you a description of this project. So everybody look at that description, read it, think about it, and then we're going to talk about what it is it's saying the kids are going to do here. So let's look at the description. Give you a couple of minutes to read it, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so yes, ma'am. Uh-huh. I love Photo Story. I love it. I use that all the time. Yes, very user friendly. And she brings up a good point. Nowhere in this project are you going to see that it says use Photo Story 3. That's not what it talks about. It'll just say the students are going to make a movie. Well, you know what? You might use Movie Maker. You might use iMovie. She's using Photo Story 3. So it's very open as to what products you can use to create. PowerPoint? Yes. Yes, so it's very open as to what resources you use. All right, so let's kind of talk about this. Just in general, what is it saying the kids are going to learn from this project? What are they actually learning? They're going to be learning about the different types of rocks through observation. So they're looking at rocks and instruction, right? Okay. What are some of the items, what are some of the products that they'll create? They're going to create what? They're going to do a video or an audio. It gives you a couple choices. All right, that's one. They're going to also create what? A diagram. But before they create the diagram, what does it say they're creating? Pictures of rocks, right? So it spells out pretty much what they're going to do. Now, I want you to think about that. Let's say you're a science teacher. Because I want you to think for a minute about the science teacher's perspective. Anybody in here ever really taught science? Okay, I've taught science too. I've taught just about everything but music. So I'm a science teacher, and oh my gosh, I have to do this project that uses technology. So thinking about that, is it hard for me to imagine having my kids learn about rocks by observing them, by looking at rocks and talking about them? Is that too far from what I might normally do? I'm a science teacher. I'm looking at rocks. Kids are looking at rocks. No? Yeah, that's normal. They're drawing pictures of rocks. Does that seem pretty normal? They're going to create a rock cycle diagram. Does that seem pretty normal or out of the box? Pretty normal. Regular teacher might have them do it on paper, cut out pictures of rocks or draw pictures of rocks, but that's not too out of the realm. Regular science teacher having kids create a movie or an audio, what do you think? Now that might be different, right? So that's where some people might think, oh, I've never taught the rock cycle. That might bother a tech apps teacher, whereas the classroom teacher, science teacher will say, oh, I can do all this, except I just never made the movie. So because you're tech apps teachers, you might consider on your own campus collaborating with classroom teachers, right? I know you're teaching the rock cycle. What if I do this project while you're teaching the rock cycle? Can we partner up on this? So that might be one way of, supporting what's going on in the core classroom, but also aligning what you do in the tech apps classroom. Because in tech apps, we don't ever want to be considered, extra. Like we're really important, aren't we? So we don't want to just be extra. We want to be a part of what's considered really important for those kids. So think. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's, and then if you've got, so hopefully today you'll leave with the language that you can have those conversations with all your core classroom teachers too. And that's a part of what Megan will help support later too. Okay. All right. So with that being said, every project has three parts. There's always a pre-test, there's always the project itself, and there's always a reflection. Now, this last sentence says, you're going to have the kids begin by assigning the technology skills pre-test to test their student readiness. Now, I will tell you, the pre-test does not test about science or math, social studies, or language arts. Remember, this is a resource to teach kids about what? Technology. So the pre-test is about their technology skills. So can they draw a rock cycle with a computer program? Can they create a video? Can they create audio files? So things like that around the technology. Because remember, every project has a digital product. So the pre-test is for the technology skills. So I'll show you the pre-test in a minute from the student side, but let me get you to click on the name of the pre-test right now. This one for hard rock, soft rock, light rock. Because I want you to look at the teacher side of things from right now. Now, when you click the name of the pre-test for the teacher view, it doesn't give you a lot of information, but the point I want to direct you to is the section called Teacher Notes. This, to me, is what's really important. And because you've been tech apps teachers for a long time, for the most part, and you have used Easy Tech, you should start to recognize these. These are our Easy Tech lessons that you might before have just assigned them and then come up with a project. Now, the kids are going to take the pre-test. If they don't pass it or they miss some part of it, they might be assigned any one of these 4 Easy Tech lessons to teach to their gap of what they know. So the pre-test will automatically assign Easy Tech lessons. All right. Yes, if you had already assigned it. But here's the thing. If you had already assigned it, and then they take the pre-test, they should get all those answers right. They should. And so if they do, then this won't be assigned to them. It only assigns what they don't show that they've mastered.
Or if it's been a while since you covered it.
Right.
Or maybe we just covered audio and video and spreadsheet and didn't cover web searches and you don't have to get into it. You can just do one lesson here.
Right, right. And remember, this is, every child takes the pretest. You know, so Mary Beth may take it and she gets one lesson assigned. I may take it and I get 3 lessons assigned, right? It depends on what we do on the pretest. So your kids will have different levels of competency, and based on how they score, they'll have these assigned. All right. I will also say though, as a teacher, you know, these are here for you. So if you just say, you know what, we're about to do this project. If I want, as a teacher, maybe I don't want them to take the pretest. I can just say, oh, I want to just automatically assign these. Everybody's doing it. We're not doing the pretest. I just know I want them to do these lessons. Or you could bring them up from here and just show them whole group and do a whole group discussion as a review. And they don't have to take the pretest that way. Yes, ma'am. Yes, you can, yes, and that's what I want you to see. So if you just decide, I don't want to do the pretest, I just automatically want them to do all 4 of these. Then as long as you have your class open, like let me come open my class. If my class is open and I come to the pretest teacher notes, I see these, I can just go say, okay, I want everybody to do this. And I just hit the assign button. Oh, it closed my class down. But yeah, so you can come in and assign it that way.
Just to make sure everybody's 100% ready for the
Exactly. And you know what? And that's okay. And that may be how you do it this year. And then next year you start to have more confidence in it and you just do the pretest. It's very flexible in how you.
All kids were in a completely different level. It was kind of hard to fill the gap for the students who already know everything. Like to give them additional assignment while they're working on what they don't know yet.
Yeah, yeah, there will be gaps, but that's why it's a pretest.
That way, if there's students who needed more questions or more help, I know who they were after the retest. Yeah, I know, retest, everybody do it together, yeah. Center, but then after that, what you do after that, get, somebody doesn't get any, let's just, because like others have like 4 lessons to cover.
I did it on the board with them.
Like test,
Yeah, the pre-test. I did it on the board with them.
And what grade?
Kindergarten.
So I think her kids didn't take the pretest. They did the pretest together. Yeah, she just did it on the board. They didn't have it assigned. Yeah, so that's the difference. Okay, let's look at the project itself. So click the name, and let's back out if you're still on the pretest. Come back out, and I want you to actually click on the name of the project so that it opens up the details page. I'm going to have you keep looking at the student side, and then I'll log in a minute. And we're going to talk about the how this looks as a student. Actually, you know what? I didn't do it. Let me make a new class. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so if you haven't already, let's click on the name of the project itself and open up the teacher view. And I want to walk you through the details of the teacher side before I show you the student side. When you first click this link, it opens up to what we call the details page. So you can see there's a button here called details. Once again, I'm going to tell you, it tells me this is 180 minutes to finish this project. I don't want you to worry about that number. When they looked at writing, well, how long is it really going to take? They included teaching them all about the rocks with the project time itself, the kids working. So it's always a lot bigger number than what we would expect. Most teachers, I don't think, spend 180 minutes a week in science anyway. That's a lot of time during the week. So just don't get too hung up on that 180 minutes or whatever the time is. It will give you the main objectives for the project for both the tech apps and for the course subject, and talks about the technology skills, and it gives you the vocabulary. So it gives you a lot of nice resources as a teacher. So if you're doing this in tech apps, you're not a science teacher, you've never taught sixth grade science, you've got those backup resources for you. Let's click the overview button. Now, the overview is just truly that. It's just a snapshot of what this project is. So we've already read the big description. We know the big idea of what the teachers are doing and the kids are doing. But where it says timeline, I want you to draw your attention to this. In the timeline, it will always break it down by parts and by task. So if you look at this, there are 3 parts, and I see 2 tasks. Parts are what the teachers do. Like, it's your part to teach. The kids do their task. So in part 1, this tells me as a teacher, I'm going to discuss the essential question that's in there. I'm going to observe different kinds of rocks and have instruction on different kinds of rocks. Could have pictures of local rocks. Part 2, I teach again, and it's my instruction on the rock cycle. And I go through and complete a diagram on the rock cycle. Then the students complete task 1. So do you see, I've done some teaching before the kids ever go off and do their work. Then we come back together, part 3, I teach again. I discuss on what we can learn from rocks. Then the students go on and do their task 2. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, let's click the teacher notes. The teacher notes look very different depending on what project it is. Some have a lot of resources, some don't have very many at all. They're always suggested resources. So if a teacher has something they prefer to use over these, they can. This particular one has a handout, so click on that rock cycle handout. And basically, it's a document that you could print out and let the kids use. So this one does not look, yeah, so this one, let's see if I can edit on it. Yeah. So they could open this up, they could write on this one, save it. Then they list some websites that you have to use. So as a teacher, these might be some you can pull up and show whole group. But remember what we learned this morning, you can make your own web links. What if I wanted my kids to have access to this? It'd be real easy. I could say, oh, I really want them to have this rock cycle diagram. I could copy that web link. And if my class is open right now, I could come in here and create a curriculum item. Does that make sense? So you can start to build out web links that you want to go along with any of these inquiry projects and just assign them like you would the inquiry project. Let me go find that one I made of that item. So here's that rock cycle diagram. I can go ahead and assign that. And then I'm going to go back to, and I could build as many of those as I wanted my children to have access to. So when I assign it, they could use any of those resources. Go back out to just get my regular inquiry project. Let's finish walking through that. The resources that you see there truly are suggested resources. You're never going to see anything listed here that the children have to use or you, the teacher, have to use. So I'll go back to what she mentioned earlier. She did this project using Photo Story 3. And you can use it with PowerPoint. It just doesn't matter. So you can, if you don't have access to some resource they mentioned, you can pick something else that works just for your purposes. All right, so anyway, the teacher notes always lists that. It lists different implementation strategies and different ELP strategies. Do y'all use the ELP strategies with your students? Okay, so that's always in there. Now, let's take a look very quickly at the lesson plan. When you look at the lesson plan, it's broken down into the parts that I mentioned earlier, but much more detailed. So if this is the first time you've taught this project, you might want to use that entire lesson plan and really try to follow it. But let's say that would be important if you've never taught science before. But let's say you've taught science for 15 years. You know, the rock cycle doesn't change a lot, right? So, I mean, you know how to teach the rock cycle. Well, you know, you can teach it however you normally teach it, but maybe just use the project idea tied in however you might teach it. So in that way, it's adaptable. But it will be very detailed for that teacher who wants a real solid way of teaching this project. We'll come back to the lesson plan in just a minute. I want you to click now on where it says rubric. Every project comes with a rubric. So part of project-based learning is assessing it with a rubric. So this is in here. You can print it out. Actually, this print button here would print the whole lesson plan out with the rubric included. But this is a great way for you to be able to know you're assessing that project well. When we get to the student side of this, you're going to see the students have a rubric, but it's in student-friendly language, and we call it goals. But they're seeing the same thing, but in a language that they can better understand. The categories, I'll just click on those. That looks a lot like what I showed you can make whenever you're making your own web link. And then the standards button, if you were to click it, it brings up a list of all the standards, and you can start to drill down and see which standards this aligns to. You would just expand the buttons down below, expand the tree, and you see it drills down to your core subject area text. So if you're working with your science teacher on your campus, I'll also show you a document that has this on it, but that's where you could show them how it aligns exactly to science. And of course, your alignments would be in there for Tech Apps. Okay, so with all that being said, I would like you to go back to the lesson plan. We're going to do some collaborative work here, so get close to somebody you can talk to. I'm going to ask you some questions in a second about this lesson plan as we go through together. I'm going to come over and I'm not using my own demo site today, and it's got me thrown a little bit. Okay, so if you've never seen the student side of this before, this is what it looks like. So this one student has a lot of teachers and a lot of classes. So a student will see a list of every teacher's class that they've been assigned to. I'm going to go into 6th grade science. Now, you can tell as a student, I've already worked through this. I've started on this. So let me just kind of walk through it as a student side. You've seen what you're doing as a teacher, right? We know we're going to give them the pretest. And I won't spend a lot of time on this because we looked at the pretest earlier today. But so as a student, I came through, I answered my questions on the pretest. I obviously did not perform very well on this. I've got some gaps in what I need to know to do this project. So let me hit exit. You can see that I was given all 4 of those Easy Tech lessons to work on. And there are a couple of things about the grading that I want you to see from the student side. The green check tells me I, as a student, finished this pretest. But see the red circle right here? It means I didn't pass it. So I've still got some work to do because I was assigned some Easy Tech lessons to do. So even in the teacher's grade book, you're going to see that red circle. It will tell you the students have started it, but they haven't finished anything that was assigned to them to work on. I had 4 Easy Tech lessons to do. The red arrow tells you I've started them, I haven't finished them. So when a student finishes something all the way, it will put a green check.
Circle, and then I will actually go, like you showed me, and they'll show me that they did.
Let me ask you, do you happen to remember, were you working in Chrome or IE? Okay. The only thing I would say to that is have them hit the F5 key. Oh, you did, and it still didn't do it, huh?
Showed me like you open up the lesson, and it went on the last, like, let's say I had 28 items, and it will say 28, and then it will still start over.
And those are the kind of things that I think would be bugs, and you could maybe take a screenshot and email it to our customer support or things like that. Yeah, if you find buggy things, that would be helpful. All right. So anyway, a student can work on this. Now, what I will tell you is this, and we've already had the discussion. Some kids might have 4 things to do. Some may have 1 or none. So when you give this pretest, I really recommend that you give yourself some time. If I know I'm starting the project in 2 weeks, give the pretest 2 weeks out, and then that way it gives kids time. They can finish the lessons if they have to. If they didn't get any lessons, that's fine because it means they already know it, and they'll still know it 2 weeks away. So that pretest can be given a week or so in advance so that everybody has had time to finish those lessons before you start the project. However, I will say this too. Let's say y'all are my class and 3 of you have lessons to finish. We can still start the project. You're not going to be kept from working on the project just because you have Easy Tech lessons to do. Okay? So that might be a teacher thing. I want to make sure you finish those projects, but we can all still work on the project, even though you've got those lessons to finish. Okay, now this is the piece I want us to really think about together. So I want you all on the teacher lesson plan, and I'm going to open up the student side where the tasks are. So this is what the students see. This is their task. It will have the different tasks written here. Whenever they're on a task, they can always come up to this check mark and read the directions for the part of the task they're on. This is their set of goals. So remember I said they'd have the student-friendly version of your rubric. That's in here. So I would always recommend as a teacher that y'all go through the rubric with the kids before they start their work so they know what they're trying to accomplish. And then there's always a glossary that has the tech vocabulary and the core subject vocabulary. Okay, now with that being said, we're really ready to start our project. What needs to happen first? Am I, as a student, going to go straight to my task 1? What does our lesson plan tell us? Okay, so I've done my assessment. I've done my pretest. But before kids start task 1, what has to happen? Yeah, so tell me, what's the teacher doing? So everybody look at your part 1, because this is what the teachers do before kids start task 1. Do you mind reading it?
Discussion of the essential questions, observation of different kinds of rocks, instruction on the different types of rocks, photos.
Are you on the lesson plan? Look at the lesson plan. That's the real detailed part. So now what does that say for the lesson plan? What are we doing as teachers for this project? Categorize. Yeah, so, okay, good. So everybody knows what a KWL chart is, right? What you want to know, and what you've learned. So basically, I'm a science teacher. I'm having my kids look at rocks. We're talking about how we can categorize rocks. They do a KWL chart. That's my instruction. Now, let's talk about science teachers, as you know them. Does that seem out of the norm for what a science teacher would do? Should a science teacher be afraid of this project so far? There's nothing to be afraid of, right? They're doing this already. I'm telling you these things and in this way because I want you to be ambassadors for this product. Because a science teacher shouldn't be concerned about doing this. We're not asking them to do anything right now that's just too out of the ordinary. Okay? All right. So with that being said, looking at the lesson plan, after part 1, do I as a student go ahead and dig into task 2, or what does something else happen first? Now we have a part 2, right? A discussion. You want to read all of what it says? Okay, so who are the people that study rocks, and why would they study rocks? So, yeah, so they're bringing in a little bit of like career exploration there. Okay. And then am I ready to start task 1 after that? Oh, I jumped ahead. I apologize, y'all. I should have done task 1. So let me come back here. So in task 1, they were going to actually make their diagram. And it's asking, what tool will you use to create your diagram? I said PowerPoint, but we've already talked about that. It could be anything. It could have been a word processing document. It could be a Google Doc. It could be a Google slide. It could be Paint. Yeah, any. Yeah, give some options, and that's a part of a project too, is giving kids options and voice and how they do things. And the other thing, but then they're also having to think, one of the technology standards prior to our newest ones was always having children choose the right tool for the job. A digital tool, why is that a good choice? So that they have to justify. Like, Mary Beth and I have taught together for years in a neighboring district. But anyway, remember Miriam? We had the most awesome first grade bilingual teacher who did incredible things with her students. They each had a laptop. You wouldn't believe what all they could do. But she did everything in Excel. She had them drawing pictures in Excel. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Everything they did in Excel. And it's like, not the right tool. But you know what? These kids, little first grade kids, you wouldn't believe the stuff they could do. So it was kind of like, okay, well, we let her do it, but it really wasn't the right choice. They did so many things. Everything.
it was amazing.
So we just sort of shook our head. But what you really want kids to do is choose the right tool, right? Like we talked about, well, they can use Paint or they can use PowerPoint. You wouldn't want them to pick a database necessarily for this, right? So anyway, unless they could justify it.
I like the fact that some of our students, for example, what digital tool we use, they may not understand what the digital tool is, the vocabulary, and I taught them that A to B icon has a dictionary of the vocabulary, it may be in there.
Maybe in there. That's good. You really got into this and got into the.
Oh, I did.
Good.
Kindergarten, that's incredible. Good for you.
Very good. Now, what I will say is once the kids draw their rock cycle, they've gone out to another application. So I did one in PowerPoint. Notice it says right here, attach or link to your rock cycle diagram. So it gives them that direction. So I would have gone out, I would have opened PowerPoint, drawn something and saved it. And then they will have the little paperclip icon. So I would go out, I would find it, and I would attach it. So now y'all don't make fun of my rock cycle, but this is what I put together. And so a student can attach what they've done, and it comes back to you as a teacher. Now, what I will say is, just for the rest of the, any of these projects or any of the journals, anything like that, kids can attach basically any kind of file. The only limitation is it can't be more than 10 megs. So even if they were to make a movie, it can be a pretty decent sized movie. It just can't be more than 10 megs. So anyway, that's what I've done. That's all I had to do on task 1. Now, task 2, I kind of jumped the gun on that, but you told me we already did our discussion, who studies rocks and why. And so the kids can see in their task 2, they're doing some group research. They're going to make a video. They're planning that. So here's the section that they're planning. So think about the task as the digital organizers or graphic organizers. This is where the kids come in and they kind of plan what their project's going to look like. So where and when are we going to record? You know what? That's a big deal when kids are working on a project together, isn't it? You know, if they're high school, they're saying, are we going to meet at Starbucks? And if they're middle school, they're saying, can you stay after school on Monday? Or can we come to your house on Saturday? So kids have to plan. So this is a part of their planning process. So you would have them as a team talk through this, write this information down. And then here it says attach or link to your final presentation. So once again, there's a paperclip, and then whatever their final project is, they can attach it here, and it would come back to you as the teacher. All right. Now, I think before I go to task 3, what does it say for the teacher? What's their part? Anybody?
Part 3, when projects are finished, give students time to present and review each other's projects. Discuss as a class why studying rocks is important. What can rocks tell us? Have students complete task 3, rock recollection.
Okay, so I'm going to come into my task 3. So they're basically sharing their projects with each other, and they're reflecting on how they did. So they're going to answer the questions, what task did I do for this project? How did I help other group members? How would I describe myself as a group member? So a little bit of reflection there. Actually, no, they cannot. That's a good question, but right now they can't. I will tell you one thing, and I'm glad you brought that up. I normally show it from the teacher side, but at the very top of any of our projects, there's a little speech bubble with a plus sign. And when I click on that, or a student clicks on that, it brings up an area for them to make comments. So this is coming to me as a teacher. Well, I'm sorry, this is my teacher. If I want to send a message to my class, I can click class. So we have built into each project a collaboration tool. Because a part of our new standards is that kids collaborate online. They can't share files, right? But they can talk about it. So if they are working on a project, but it's after school hours, they can talk about it. Yes. So I'll show you how to disable that. We know online collaboration is important, right? But we also know it can become inappropriate. So a couple things about this. The students only have access to collaborate on a project when a project is assigned. So if the project is in here for them to work on, they can collaborate. But in your class settings, I'll show you where you can turn that off. So maybe you want to leave it turned off until maybe you'll turn it on, overnight, one night or something like that. I will tell you also that the comments are filtered, so it should catch bad words. Even if they comment to the class, the teacher is a part of the class, so you see every single comment, whether it's made just to you or made to the class. If something comes through that gets blocked because it's got a bad word in it, then only you see it as a teacher, and you can delete the comments. Kids can't delete. So if they say something bad, it's up there for, you've got it. No one else sees it but you, but they can't delete it and say, oh, I didn't do that. So it's got those kind of things built into it.
So each project, I will have to enable the comments for this.
Well, not so much in each project, but it's just that one setting in your class. So if you have it turned off all the time, even if they did all 6 projects, if it was turned off, they could never collaborate. So it's your class you enable it. Meredith?
I was just going to add, depending on the grade level you're teaching and what you were saying, could you turn off the comments and the question, can they delete a comment? That's a great segue into the digital footprint that you leave online that so many of our kids don't understand. Well, I shared just that one thing with one person and now it's out there for the whole world. It's a great, real true life lesson in sort of a controlled environment. That was one thing I thought of.
Okay, so when at the very end of this, and I'm sorry I kind of closed out without saying, but at the very end of this, there's a button that says turn in project. So at the very end, kids turn in their project. Prior to that time, they can work on it, go in and out of it as many times as they need to, and edit it. Once it's turned in, though, they can't work on it again unless you open it up for them. So I'll show you how to open it up. All right, so let me close out of that, and then I'm back in as a student. I want you to just look at this because you don't have access to see this on your side, but after the project is finished, kids can come in and answer the reflection. And the way the reflection is set up, it's identical to the set of goals that they had. And they would just come through and they would click and they would pick however they felt they performed. There's always a place down below for them to make comments around anything that they're marking about. And a way for you to also differentiate, because your kindergarten, they will have creative spelling and all kinds of things. But when it gets to first grade, you might want them to have proper punctuation. Third graders, you might just expect the sentence. Fifth graders, you want a pretty detailed explanation with key points. So you can really kind of differentiate how the kids are responding based on their readiness. But they'll fill that out, and then when they're through, they'll turn in that reflection. Okay, so questions about the projects. Do you understand the flow of how they would work? Does that help you understand why maybe your kids struggle just seeing the task if you only gave them a task? Good. Because if you just look at the tasks by themselves, you don't really understand. It's the teacher instruction that's important. So you are teaching this, and then this is what they come behind and do to follow up. That's why I say this is not a plug and play. You can't just assign it and say, be finished in 2 weeks, because it does take you, working through and giving you things. Now, what I will say is, you as lab teachers, you've got access to computers every day. So for you, it's pretty easy to follow the flow of teaching, let them have computer time, teach some more computer time. Your classroom teachers who might try this, unless they've got computer lab time every day or a bank of computers in their classroom or tablets, they may have to, maybe they'll do all their teaching first, and then the kids go off and do all the tasks, right? So, but it varies in how people might want to use these. But just know the kids have to have instruction before they come in and just start to work on tasks, because the task buttons themselves are not enough to guide the kids in what they need to do. All right, any questions about this? Okay. Let me go back into the teacher side. I want to show you the grade book. And after we do this, we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back and start looking at the alignment process. All right, so as a teacher, you know what, let me log out and go into my demo account, because I've actually got it graded there. Okay, as a teacher, this is what your grade book will start to look like. You'll have, especially once the district sync is starting, you're going to have all of your kids listed in your class. As they finish, their grades will start to show up. So you'll have a column for each part of the project. So here's my pre-test, here's the actual project, here's the reflection. Now, you know what? I keep forgetting to say this. Mary Beth was telling, say it again? Marita. Okay. Okay. On top of our icons, like the PT and the P and the R, do you see the extra little blue square with the white rectangle in it? Anytime you see that little icon on top of our other one, it means that it's tablet ready. So these will work on an iPad or another tablet. So we do have a Learning.com app in the Apple Store and in the Google Play Store. So your kids can complete these on the tablets. For you, the teacher, you still have to log into a browser, be it a desktop browser or an iPad browser, to assign the curriculum and work with your gradebook. So the teacher tools are still through a browser, but the kids can complete the projects through the app. Okay, so let me show you how this looks when you start to grade it. So let's say I go in, I'm ready to look at Ryan's work. Here's his pretest. I can tell by the circle what's happened for Ryan on this. Remember? Didn't pass it. He's done it, just not passed. So let me click it. It brings up his pretest. I can look at it just like this. I can see everything he got right and wrong. But to really read more about it, I click the progress button. I can see he only got 1 out of 3 right for the questions around audio and video. He was given an assignment, and it is in progress. He's working on that. He also had this validity and sourcing. He got 1 out of 3 questions right of that. It is prescribed, but he has not started it. If I wanted him to completely do this over, see the reset for student, I could reset it, and then he could retake that pretest. Now, for the project, because he finished and he hit turn it in, it says grade this. So you have to come in, hit grade this. It brings you into his set of tasks. Well, the thing about this, you can go in, and if I need to see what his diagram looked like, I can click the task 1, and then let me click the paperclip icon, and I can actually open up, for some reason, this window is too big. I can click the paperclip, and I can actually open up his file. So you can go, this is how it becomes downloaded. This becomes a little bit of a learning management system for you in the sense that you're able to get their files back and forth. So you can see this, you can grade it from here, save it somewhere else, print it, whatever you would normally do. Sorry, I hit the wrong button. But if I'm really ready to grade it, I can hit the grade button, grade and comment button. It brings up the comment box. I can see anything he said to me. But where it says grade, I click that. And now, after I reviewed what his project looked like, I looked at the task, I opened up his files, then I can say, oh, okay, I need to start to score this. Now, if you don't have that rubric in front of you, you can view the rubric here. Personally, I would print it and have it right beside me. But then you just start to come through and you just score. How did he do? Once you've scored it, you can just submit that grade. Now, let's say Ryan said, oh, miss, do they still do that? Oh, miss, I hit submit and I didn't mean to. Then you can reopen it and then they can work on it some more. But I'm going to go ahead and hit submit grade. And then I'm through grading Ryan's, and watch what it does in my grade book. It's going to give me his score based off that rubric. Okay, the reflection, this one says in progress. It means that he's working on it, has not turned it in yet. If he had turned it in, it would have said grade this. And then the reflections always get just complete or incomplete. Okay, any questions about the grade book? Yes, ma'am.
I can see when you said there are 2 B arrows, that means that this database is taking names from our database. So when it's taking names from there, when we grade students here, is there a way we send that back to our grading system?
No. That would be lovely though, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
No.
if you enter it here and then you go back and enter grade over there.
What grade book do y'all use? Eduphoria has a grade book in it?
Yeah, it has a grade.
Okay. It doesn't talk back to but I will show you this. Up above, do you see where it says export gradebook?
Yeah.
If you click that, it does open up a CSV file.
Yeah.
Now, here's the one problem, and I think everybody in this room needs to complain to customer support. How many would that be? Here's the thing. If you say this, CSV, usually your grade book will let you import grades. Like we used to use grade speed. And so we could export and then import. Most likely the same thing could happen for you all. The problem is this. It doesn't just give you a number. It gives you a percentage sign and then it tells you how many questions are right out of it. So basically what you would have to do is come in and like delete all this.
Yeah, it's giving it as a text. And now you're missing the number.
Right. And but because it's got you can't even just convert it to.
Yeah, so even if we import it, it will not take it because it's text and we will need an amount.
Right.
So it'd be a pain. You could go in and do a find and replace, save it as a number, blah, blah, blah. By that time, it would be just as easy to print it.
And
enter it. So I think if everybody starts to complain about this, which is my new message, he's recording, I forgot about that. I just think that they need to hear it from classroom teachers that thank you for making this available, but it just doesn't work. We need just a number in that.
That's another column with that ratio.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the one way you can get it directly into that, your grade book, but it takes some tweaking. Okay. Any questions about what we talked about? Do you feel pretty good about how the projects are designed and meant to be implemented?
Yes, I have just one question. The parliamentary grades, we have one lesson per week. Is there anybody who has already,
one lesson per week.
is it okay, like,
No, I
our
find
kids-
it's too less. I feel it's too less.
yeah, it's not.
To have one lesson a week is too less.
So how inquiry part works with one lesson per week?
I didn't do inquiry.
Because with that graders, it's okay, it's like twice a week, it's good.
Yeah.
It's okay, but like 1 2 weeks, I have the one.
If they miss one class, like they're seeing them after 15 days, so yeah, it doesn't work with that.
Oh, so your kids are on rotations?
No, like,
Not on rotation.
we, as the elementary school, we have one lesson per week for each section.
Like once a week. We see them throughout the year, but only one lesson a week, 45 minutes. By the time they come in, 10 minutes are gone, so it's like 30 minutes to get.
For middle school, for 7 and 8 grade, probably twice, it's good.
Yeah, it's better.
They may forget. I did the project phase. So even though I just enter in a grade once a week, for example, okay, it'll be 3 weeks to do a project. The pre-test, the project, and the reflection. But really, the first week I'm teaching them the parts of the project. In the pre-test and going over the vocabulary words and the digital tools that we're going to use that first time. Second time, we're doing the project. And I'm teaching them whatever they need to go over. Third time is the reflection, which is task number 3. They usually have 3 tasks. But with the reflection, it's really, they can finish that in like 5 minutes. So if there's some students who need to finish their projects, then they can finish their project. And the ones who did not, then I'll give them my code.org to do. So that's how I managed
So
it.
you could manage like the second part, the main part, in one lesson, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or like 2. So the first one is the pre-test, and I'm explaining the lesson. Second week, the project. Third week, project and reflection. So really 2 weeks I'm working on the project.
But if you buddy up with a content teacher, think about the science one. Rocks is going to take you longer if the kids don't understand about rocks. So if you buddy up or you talk to the science teacher or after the document that you work on in a little while, then you'll know when they're doing the the science. So you won't have to worry so much about the science knowledge, it's just the technology.
So what about your, kids like the kindergarten? They cannot even read, write.
There's a speaker, picture or icon when they're doing the project. And when they have on their headphones, they can click the speaker. And I had to teach them that, of course. I had to teach them different components on how to use the computer. Then I had to teach them on how to use learning.com. And it was a year.
I mean, like, my kids, they already know how to do it, they know how to log in, they know everything, but like, once we get there, like, if there's no sound, like, if they go to the previous or something, they don't know what to do.
On every,
Like, how to make the project.
it usually has the sound.
They will,
A speaker.
they'll-
They're not gonna have an advanced project. The project they use is age.
right, so this is an example, like our kindergarten through second grade are very picture oriented. So here's a kindergarten pre-test, so I'll just show you what it looks like. And then always there is a speech button.
Choose the mouse. Press the pointer in the picture.
Okay. And then when you look at the project, yeah, so let's look at this project. This is think like a geologist. This is what the kids see. So first of all, different colors. It's reds and greens, so primary colors, and much more graphically oriented with just pictures. So here it says sort by size.
Sort by size.
And then small. Oops.
Sort by color.
That looks green. Okay. So, they may need help reading their color words, but you get the idea. It's much less, yeah. And then the middle school are more advanced, so they'll have more tasks. It's heavier reading. What we discovered though, because see, this is only the second school year this product's been in place. So last year was the first year. And what was discovered during the textbook adoption and people testing it out and seeing it was it needed more audio support. So that's why it goes through 8th grade, because it reads even up through 8th grade. Well, I mean, I know from working with teachers for many years that when it comes to kindergarten, the first semester, you're probably just still teaching them how to log into the computer, right? So the fact that she does it whole group, they're still learning. So you might just think about doing some of these whole group. But I have watched kindergartners do this. Like when we were first getting it ready for districts to use, Pasadena piloted it. And I was in kindergarten classrooms and watched them. Yeah, it takes time.
Sure.
And especially kindergarten.
Yeah, because like I remember last year, I had to do they wanted about like I don't need to get them their car. They know their username and password. They go and log in by their
That's wonderful.
Yeah. That was like,
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because for you, Marita and Jay, y'all may not realize this, but let me go back to my grade book real quickly. When you're in your grade book, once you've got kids in there and you've given them assignments, you do have a little button up above that says print login cards. So for every student in your class, it gives a login card. They changed this, they updated it. So they put and good, good. This is not just www.learning.com now. They changed our site, so it's actually login.learning.com. It's login.learning.com instead of www.
If you go to www, there's still a login button at the top. It's just one more step. They, especially for kindergarten, they have to find the word login.
For the smaller kids, I would suggest, this is what works for me. I will print out the login cards, and I will have it in a designated area of preferences after a while, where they can come up and look for their login name, so they can be more responsible and remember it, and not depend on me so much. So I will have that login card in front of the room, and the little kids, they'll lose that little piece of paper, so they don't have to take it.
Yeah, that's what I do. I keep it. Even it's like when I tell them to return before they leave, they lose it. They'll lose it.
I always have, with the little ones, when I was doing that, there's always at least like one kid that like finishes before everybody else. I would have them go around and pick up all the cards.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah. Before the end of class, otherwise don't ever go back.
Okay. I'm going to get you. Y'all need a break? Why don't we do a break? Let's start back up at, we'll just put it straight up 3 o'clock. Okay? Now, I will tell you, when you come back, I'm going to have you working by grade level. So you may want to think about who's in here. So how many are kindergarten teachers? Most. Okay, and first? Then you may want to move over there. And then the rest, who's like 6, 8? Anybody that's more middle school, y'all come over here, high school, middle school. And then let's put all the elementaries over here because I want y'all to be talking and working together. So when y'all come back, just middle school, 6 and 8 up over here. Okay, so let's start back up at 3 o'clock. The Project Next Tech. There's a digital citizenship app that's out there too. That's out of that other product I told you about. Gosh, Honor, she must be SAS. Hour 30 minutes to get over here. I have. You don't know what grade she's in? Oh. What school are you?
Okay. Yeah, I know. That's what I started laughing. He said it might be kicked right. It's okay, it's like 3 years ago.
Sure. You know, next is for high school. No, that's for all grade levels. I will tell you, you can just get there by going to the website. Like it's a website, you don't have to go through actually SAS. And it's free resource. Yes, it's just another product group. I would look at project.
What it said. Where you want to see a demo of that, you can tell me. Get that right. That's what I'm saying. And I think. And they don't have that for science. They have. Yeah, like would. But you see, even here, if you look at it, you're not finding a lesson plan. So when you go to your review, so see, these are just documents. Even there. Now, these put all their materials online, all their anything for free. I mean, so let's that's great. Or algorithms for let's just look at this is okay. Like the tutorials and yeah, yeah. We know that it's
All righty, let me get us to come back together, and if you will, try to sit by people that are elementary over there and middle school over here. All right, what I'm going to give you access to today is just a document that is really an organizational tool. So So I'm going to share a document with you. You can always have access to this link to add things to it, but you can also copy it and save it later after today to your own drives. But let me show you what I would like to work on when we leave 4 o'clock. When you come into inquiry, and I'd like you to buddy up, maybe 2 people working on kinder, 2 on first grade. It doesn't, I don't care what grades you work on, but I think probably starting out, just let 2 people work together on a grade level. But if you will come into a grade, I want you to think about, you've got 6 projects for this grade. Your task is going to be to say, where do my Harmony teachers teach this topic in language arts? Where do they teach this in ELA? So with that being said, there are some resources that I want to share with you to help you get through this. So you'll probably want to look at this list of projects. You have this to work with. But I've got some other resources I'm going to give you. So what I'd like you to do is go into learning.com, and probably the easiest way to do this is to go into the library. And there is a search button up at the top. I'd like you to type in Harmony Inquiry. Harmony Inquiry, and then just do a search. What this should pull up is a link that I created for you to use here today, but then to have later. So remember what we talked about earlier, put something on your Google Drive, and then I shared it out to you all. So that's what it is. I created a shareable link that lets you all edit what I'm sharing with you, and then I just made this web link in learn.com. So Jamie, that's what you could do later if you wanted to make more journal activities, but okay. So if you'll open that, I was just hitting the name of the web link. I don't know if View does it. Let's see if View does it. Yeah, View does it also. This is a document that you should be able to edit and write on. And so at the end of today, I should be able to collect the things that you align, the projects that you've aligned. Now notice that there are 9 pages. So there's a kindergarten page, and if you scroll down, you'll see there's a page for first grade, second grade. So once you decide what grade you're going to work on, you and your buddy will just make sure you're at the right grade level page. Now, let me talk to you about the structure of this. So just for the sake of us all being together, go back up to the kindergarten page, the top section. All right, here's how this is organized. It'll show you the grade level at the top. And then the first column is the name and the dates of the subject area unit. This is the subject area unit for Harmony. And see down below, I've got a place for the 2 ELA projects and the 2 math, but I've given you an example already for Harmony. The math project for geometry fits in with the 2 and 3D dimensional units that are occurring in March through April, March 21 through April. I put in the math text that they teach too. This is the name of the inquiry project, circles, triangles, and squares. And then these are the kinds of resources that the kids would need. Drawing. Remember how I showed you earlier, if maybe I wanted to make a web link about one of the resources, then I could put the name of the web link that I've made to go with that resource. This is really just a graphic organizer for you all to say, where does this fit with Harmony? What's it teaching for the core subject? What standards are those? And then what's the name of the inquiry project? Now, up at the top of each of the columns, I've put some links in here for you. This, above the core subject text, there's just a link out to the TEA website that lists all of our standards. That's just a resource for you. But up above where it says name of inquiry project, go ahead and click this link. So you'll need to do a control click. It brings up a link. This takes you out to our learning.com document. What this does is this shows you the subject area. Let me stand up here and kind of point. What it will do, and I'll just do this because I'm short and it's right here. It'll tell you the grade level. It will tell you the name of the project. So that's what's in this gray bar. And so like the first one they have listed is kindergarten, circles, triangles, and squares. And then here's kindergarten, let's write. And then it tells you what subject it's aligned to. These are the subject area standards, the text for the subject. And this is the, what those standards are. So the goal is in an hour, not to finish all of this, is just to get you started thinking about it. So if you know the name of the subject, the projects for us, you know what subject area, and you have a good idea of what the standards are, that's a good place to start. You may want to actually go look at the project and read the lesson plan if you think that helps you understand it better. But what I would like you to do is this also. In the Harmony Curriculum Guide, so I've got this opened up in a different tab. What you would want to do is say, okay, I know that's and I'm doing the kindergarten one. I know that math kindergarten project, get back to it. I was doing the math one, the first one. That math kindergarten project, I know it's about geometry. And I know it teaches like K1 and K6. Those are the standards for kindergarten. So I know it's teaching geometry. Then I'm going to go into the Harmony curriculum. I'm going to go into math for kindergarten. And you'll usually see one of two things here. You're going to see their pacing calendar, a scope and sequence, or you might see a year at a glance. But basically what it's going to do is list for you, get it opened up, a list of what they're teaching by 9 weeks. And you'll see the names of their units. You'll see the text that they're teaching. So I think with mine, I came down, what did I say? I found it in March. Yeah, so right in here. I found, here's where they're teaching geometry in kindergarten. So this is the name of the unit. I just copied it and I came back to this link here and I pasted it in my document. So that's the name of the unit. I typed in the date that they teach that. I pasted in the text. Here's the name of the project, the circles, triangles, and squares. And then for the resources to use, one of the things I did is I had already read that lesson plan, but let's see. I also have put at the top of this column a list of resources by project. So you can even come in here and look if you want to. and say, oh, okay, let's see, here's the circles, triangles, and squares. It tells me the resource they need to use. That is just drawing software. So it's a lot of pieces, but I'm trying to just get you to pull it together. Where do they teach this in Harmony? What's the name of the unit that they're teaching? What days does it happen? What's the name of the inquiry project? That would be the main thing. If you have time to put in the text, resources, great. But mainly, I just kind of like you to know, when are they teaching geometry? When are they teaching financial literacy? Does that make sense? So go ahead and get started. Mary Beth and I are here. We'll walk around. We'll help you. This is a resource for you to get started on. There's no stress and pressure that you have to finish all of this, but just see if you can start to match up our projects to what's happening in Harmony. Okay? Well, yes. Ask for some access. But it was more than just in there. Not necessarily, but there are. Right. And see, the thing is, and turn around. I mean, simple kind of stuff. I just wanted you to know that. Yeah, I think that was. You're welcome. They're doing 4. Y'all are doing 6, right? They're doing 6. Are you guys doing 6th grade?
Yes. Okay.
Stephanie, 7th grade?
Yes.
Oh, they said 7th. I'm only 5th. They'll do 5th. Because I think they were already doing 6 and 7. They're doing 4. These two guys are working together. And they're doing 4. Okay, so what are you trying to find? So if you go to grade 4. Okay, so grade 4, yeah, like, let it stay online. So they're working on 97.5. Right there. I would go find LA. I'm sorry. Just write small strings. Write immediately. And sometimes I look at the year at a glance and it's easy to tell. I don't know if I don't know. Now, I will say the one thing about ELA, their standards, they kind of teach all year. So you might find that it works every semester for everybody. Yeah, I mean, as long as you're teaching that standard. Okay, so I will say this is reading and this is writing. So look at the writing, and I see like they got something about narrative writing. But I think that lesson talked about writing.
I did that earlier, and that's the only reason. I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, and we might learn how to write. Words that make sense.
Recommendation is doing both. And I see where the project is really important. And then see where that content fits with the department curriculum. So you really but that's why you got this. So your kindergarten, okay, ELA, there's one called that.
And that one's ours, so that one is.
No, I'm glad.
Yeah, so the inquiry project name goes here, and then this is the harmony. So whatever harmony calls that unit. Right.
And you go to English language arts. So what are the kids doing with that?
So, yeah, the name of the unit is
This is kindergarten. So this is
whatever they call it.
narrative or let's write. ELA. So here it is. So now you see the standard five, and 10. So now you want to harmony, kindergarten, ELA.
Now, I didn't use the other four.
I think that's the second way. I have, I have an allergic to that. I just want to put. Let's see what these grades are. Yeah.
Fourth grade 15.
Try the one that.
Now, ours is, they are covering.
So, right. Yeah. This one has been using words that. Does that help?
And then the name.
Let's start. That's what you have to find. So that helps a little. What? A little. Identifying words that. So then what you want to figure out is what is it, right? And then you're gonna say, you know, like she did here, when it is, what the unit was called here. And the name was, like, what was it, like, you say, well, yeah, it was K5A. And here's K5A. So then you're looking at see if it's in the same unit. So then, see, this would be reading, poetry, and reading right now. And then you know that you have to say that happens from like that, just like that. So look, we're 19th of December. It is. So then here, it is 15A, no, C, D. That's your second list. You want to do this project. So these are research. Remember how I showed you the school-based website? These are your resources. You need to go to the core curriculum. So go find, so you do core grade, go find that project. No, somebody else is doing. Oh, yeah, we're doing fifth. Yeah, so just go down to the fifth grade. Yeah, go find it. So you're just you're only gonna work on this fifth grade. Now you will go. What do you want to show?
So they're saying, you want to make some web.
Okay, but then you need to find, so inquiry for business safe surfing. So in other words, these are web links that you can make and use with that. Then scroll down to if you want to copy those. And then later you want to make established. Somebody else needs to have the document.
Then you could add that.
So then you can refer back. I copy all three of them. You need fifth grade, this is still first. Okay, so here's, yeah, input later, like, oh, okay, I'm like a web link, then you can see the standards, a little bit of 5.8. So now, where is your?
Yeah, and so if you make a web link, then you can find it, so now you go back to. They're not waiting on you to show them, they can look at it themselves later, go back. Like these actually, they read that website, and what basically on this project, what they do is they come up with 5 ideas or something on what they want. And then I can poster.
This is what I'm saying. But none of these are, so all it says is there. So let's minimize this. Yeah, minimize the one. So, first quarter,
Yeah, so there's one more, like, I've already done one of my.
I've done 15, so I've done.
Everybody comfortable, doing okay? We got 4 credits, right?
Right.
To add that to my unit, in terms of the kind of video. So, it is across second.
Yes. That particular inquiry action.
And most of these, y'all see that's divided. Reading and demonstrating.
So let's go back. Okay, so let's see what it says. They have to get a first draft. They have to develop drafts, write drafts. Edit drafts, so it's written or write. So I would give up this writing and not the document. You know why? Because everybody's sharing the document. And you shouldn't be working on 50. That's someone over Okay, I'll peek around and see somebody. Is it your buddy? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No one knew you were doing 7th grade, so here's the culprit. They were looking at the document and they saw somebody working on 7th grade. Oh, they grabbed who it was. We thought everybody here was in 6th grade. Yeah, you better talk to me. Right. So I'm not with my, I'm 6th grade. Oh, that's nice. Okay, when Jane comes back, she's in our room. Yeah, you're right. So these, are the main objectives. So these are the four big grades. Jay, we found the other seventh grade person. This lady is working on seventh grade. So you talk to her and divide up what you're gonna do and what she's gonna do. So you're not writing over and over. So did you, she was doing that sixth grade. You're okay. So they're working on.
What's the project? The mandala?
No, where two and three intersect.
Oh, so it's a geometry.
Right, but it's. Okay, so now we need to work to get standards, 7.1. So now let's go to this 7.1.
They're like, yeah, kind of. But yeah, I don't think I'm gonna come.
It covers quite a bit of everything from something that's like 6 weeks or 7 weeks to a lot. So, like, the latest is that ELA? Okay. ELA, their texts just run all year But I would say, if you wanna think about ELA teachers, they're totally, do y'all do the state assessment, stars and stuff? See, they're not even so maybe in January or late, fall, right before Christmas or something. As long as you think that those standards have already been covered and addressed, they're so broad in ELA.
And the only one that's not covered by about that time is 6.2. So, maybe that it was late to cover enough that seven.
And I don't even know what that one is.
But it might be something you can cover enough.
Yeah, sure.
that I was crazy. Over so many times over.
He didn't know if he thought those 3 pages were laid in the middle to that way. And he's like, "Let's work on it." So, okay, so Nettie hears there's and they never have 7.1. So, and ours was all 7.1, 7.1, 18. It's on the redirect. So the only thing that we're thinking is the geometry. So, I think if we ought to leave the standard, because they do match the text we put in the law. And the same standards, we just don't have that.
And when I look down here, oh, it has, when I look down here, they're doing 2D and 3D shapes like here, right? Prism, 3D, pyramids, 3D. So I would think sometimes here they're doing 3D. You know, whereas. Yeah, maybe something later in the.
So, we'll leave the standard. Or we'll save the time between, say, January 29th, Friday, and music.
Okay.
Even though it doesn't match up, they have to do their class. Let's go back to your doc. They need to come and show them. You're in there. Is it getting better? Good. Yeah, it takes a while to get in. Let's think about what you're doing and how this would help kids understand how to keep computers open. I mean, that's a real important skill to have. You guys okay? Make a little more sense. We found there was a better document. Instead of the pacing calendar, there was like a spoken. Yeah, try this spoken.
Yeah, I have found I had to jump sometimes between their pacing calendar
It's not
or their year at a glance or their scope and sequence, you know, and every subject is a little different.
I like this. Where they need standard. great. Process standards, which are more like what we do in my share what is content? So it's not. I think you're right going down. Well, that's, you have to go to the already map. So let's look back. Well, it would interject making purchasing. Yeah, so in other words, you said be more specific, I think that's the other side. Go to the library, the portion one, like, needs to be more specific. Yeah. No, I think you're good, right, I think this needs to be more detailed. So we're trying to do it. And people are working on it. That's this. Percentage than it is crack. So we. Everybody. That probably fits that. This is just.
Okay, let's come back together. We've got just about 7 minutes, and I want to wrap up so you can walk out of the door at 4 o'clock. I saw a lot of work going on. This is the Google Doc that I'm able to see. And so when I start to look down, I see a lot is filled in for all the grade levels. So that's really good. This is a web link. Y'all can save it, bookmark it. It will be on my Google Drive. Y'all can keep working on it. Probably tomorrow, I'm going to give Megan Spears, who's y'all's academic director here, the link so she can have access and copy it. This is not an official document. This is a working document for you. So you can start to think about, oh, where does this match with what we do in Harmony? Where can I do the inquiry projects? Because I know we're doing this in math, or we do this in English at this time. So it's a resource for you. I'll share it with Megan and Mr. Cavo. Any questions about the document, though, and how you would use it to support yourself? Pretty straightforward. All right. Thank y'all for working so diligently on it. We're going to go ahead and stop. I told you probably wouldn't get it finished. Before we leave, let me, first of all, thank you for your great attention and interest today in the product. I hope you as newcomers to this feel comfortable with it. Do y'all have any questions before you leave that you want answered? Like everything. Oh, my email, is that what you said? Yeah, my email is, let me put it up here. I'll put it up here and then y'all can type, y'all can see it.
It'll be way at the top of that document above kindergarten. nbriggs@learning.com. Briggs has 2 G's.
So nbriggs@learning.com. My first name is Nettie. I am here to help you if you've got curriculum questions. So, I'm trying to implement this. This doesn't make sense to me. How would I work with this inquiry project? If you have problems like this program is freezing on me, or my grade book doesn't show the right score, whatever. If it's technical things, you'll need to contact our customer support. They've got the tools to help you with technical things. But if it's instruction, that's my email, so y'all can send me an email, and I'll be glad to answer questions as I can. I really appreciate this. If y'all are using projects like Candace, you're using them a lot. If you have good things to report out, or that's even helpful, because then I can start to say, if somebody, like if you have a question, I'm saying, oh, well, Candace is doing this. Why don't we'll get y'all together. So you can also start to help each other. Thanks. Well,
Or
and
you can
actually,
put it up at the top of the document. Everybody can see it up there.
plus I'm taking a copy of y'all's sign-in sheet, but yeah. Well, I really appreciate your attention today. I can't say it enough. I hope y'all have a fantastic year.